Welcome to the second episode of our three-part webinar series, Fast Tracking the Future, brought to you in association with Sarine Technologies. Since 1988, Sarine Technologies has been the leading technology company in the worldwide diamond domain, providing multidisciplinary products based on cutting-edge technology to diamanteurs, traders, and retailers. From its genesis, Sarin has been releasing products that have pioneered breakthroughs in the concepts and practices that form the diamond pipeline. This series tackles what we believe at Rappaport and Sarin are the key developments influencing the diamond industry in the next decade. If you missed it, you can watch the first episode, The Sustainability Awakening, on the Rappaport YouTube channel. Today, our topic is diamonds in the metaverse. According to Google Analytics, the number of searches for the word metaverse has increased tenfold from 2020 to 2021. There's a real frenzy around NFTs, non-fungible tokens. A report estimates that the annual growth rate of the value of the NFT market went 750%, going from $41 million to $24 billion, just in 3 years, between 2018 and 2021. So there's a lot of hype around NFTs. We've heard the big fashion leading houses, Gucci, Bulgari, being interested in the market, Nike. And today we're going to try to dispel the myth, go through the misconceptions, and see how NFTs and the metaverse are relevant to the diamond and jewelry industry. Please share your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of this screen. And at the end of the session, in 45 minutes, we'll start answering some of your questions. We hope to answer as many as possible. I'm really excited to have three guests today who are the forefront of the metaverse. My first guest is David Block, the CEO of Sarine Technologies. Hi, David.
Hi, Sonia. How are you doing? Good to be here.
Good. And David has been at Sarin for over 20 years and has played an instrumental role in the initiation, development, and introduction of many of the revolutionary innovations the group has brought in the diamond industry. Under his guidance, Sarin's diamond planning systems have become the de facto standard for diamond manufacturing, with over 70 million diamonds planned each year. For the past years, David has been spearheading Sarin's introduction of similarly innovative technologies from the downstream to the wholesale and retail. And also what's very interesting, and David will tell us a bit more about that, is an early adopter and collector of NFTs. My two other guests come from the Aura Blockchain Consortium, Daniela Ott and David Teruzzi. Hi, Daniela and David.
Hi.
Hi, Sonia. Thank you for having us.
And so I'll tell you a bit more about the Aura Blockchain Consortium. It was established in April 2021 by three major luxury players, LVMH, Prada Group, and Cartier, which is part of the Richemont Group. And in 2020 and October 21, it was joined by the OTB Group. And the luxury groups have joined forces to address the shared challenges of communicating authenticity, responsible sourcing, and sustainability in a secure digital format. It's a non-profit association. And to celebrate the first anniversary, just happened last month, Aura has launched new NFT solutions, Aura NFT gifting and NFT white label. So we'll discuss that. I think that's very interesting for our audience to know what kind of initiatives are taking place. And also, so just to tell you a bit more about our two guests, Daniela is the Secretary General of Aura. She's a leader in the luxury industry, and she has over 20 years experience in brand management, strategy, merchandising, and consumer understanding. And she has some roles at Kering Luxury Division within the Kering Group, and also at Eden Being, which is part of the Ocker Luxury Hotel Collection. As for David Teruzzi, he's the co-founder of Token Invest, which is a company based in Switzerland that helps companies invest in cryptocurrencies. So, and David is the CTO of Aura.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you so much. I see we already have a lot of Q&As, but we'll keep everything for the end. I would like first, very quickly, that each of our guests tell us what is the biggest misconception about the metaverse and NFT today. Let's start maybe with Daniela.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here and to share some of the myth and some of the realities of the metaverse, if I may say. I think you have to go a little bit back to the basics, and before going far to the metaverse, really tackle, if I may say, the basics. So in Aura, as you said, Aura was officially founded in April last year, but it's actually in the making with David all along the way. I only joined a year ago, but David was there right from the beginning, which was 4 years ago. So we have actually 2 business units. We have our own private permission-based blockchain, which is much more sustainable than any other public block, obviously, because we know where our nodes are. We manage our nodes, we know where the energy is coming from, and we're actually having over 17 million private NFTs, if you want, or products logged on this private permission-based blockchain. Actually, this was private permission-based blockchain, which is the most sustainable solution for luxury in the blockchain space. We can actually do all the upstream and downstream traceability, and this is where actually Sarin comes in, and where we work with David and his team in terms of the traceability of diamonds. We have a second business unit, which is digital collectibles, which we just launched, as you correctly said, last month. And this is our second business unit, and this is on the public blockchain. Now, we have sometimes ways, if the brands wanted, that we connect actually the provenance token, which is all about traceability, and the public NFT. But I think one has to be careful and really get back to the basics and really the added value to the consumer in the first place before going far in the metaverse, if I may say. So for us, it's really about these 2 business units and good old traceability, which I think is really relevant, and before going far into the metaverse.
So we'll go back to traceability, and I think that will be one of the many benefits that we can discuss about NFTs, which brings me to David from Sarin about traceability. But what do you think? What do you think is the biggest myth? That's the hype and the substance in NFTs. What is for you the most important one that you feel you've heard? Because I know you had many conversations with people, and you've tried to educate people from the trade. What have you heard that you think we should dispel today and help to our audience to learn a bit more?
Yeah, well, I think I'll be very, very, very simple. And Metaverse and NFTs is not some get-rich-quick scheme. I think that's what a lot of people look at it. They read a lot about what's going on with all the hype in some of the NFTs that are more well-known. But I think that's very superficial, and this isn't some get-rich-quick scheme, and that is how it's looked at by a lot of people. As you mentioned, I started collecting NFTs sometime early last year, maybe not at the very beginning, but fairly early along. And the reason I did it was to start learning about NFTs, and I think to learn about something, the easiest way to do it is to actually do it. Not to read about it, not to talk about it, but actually do it. And in the process of doing that, I engaged with a lot of different communities, NFT communities, a lot of different people. And as I said, I think that my takeaway, at least at this point in time, is that many people get into the space because they think that they're going to make quick money and don't really understand, as Daniela mentioned, what is the underlying value of what they're doing. And I think that's what is very important to understand when you get into the space, is to understand what is the real value being created and not get carried away with hype.
Thank you. Absolutely. And David Teruzzi, as a cryptocurrency blockchain expert, what do you think people have said about NFTs that maybe is misleading? And we think always of little ape cartoons that are selling for I don't know how many digits, but there's much more to it. What do you think?
I think that I agree with David with the fact that people are following the hype, and there is much more behind the hype, and you have to understand what you do. I also think that the space is really early, so it's difficult also to define what is a misunderstanding. because to understand there is a misunderstanding, you still have to understand what is the metaverse completely. But maybe I would say that aside from the hype and the fact that people are maybe chasing the quick gains, is maybe the fact that the metaverse is today a really public space, the same way that at the beginning we had a public space with the internet. So it's a new public space. You have to learn to walk in, and this is the most difficult, I think, part, especially on B2B when you talk with brands, to understand how to move into this. I see some similarities with the beginning of the internet, when people say, what is this a publicly release in a public web page that anyone can read at any time, and now you have some activities that depends on your private key, on your account, and you have to get used with that, or in any case change your business to cope with this new public space.
Thank you. And I think what we could look at is maybe the two impact, one on the consumer and one on the trade. So I think, Daniela, you have a great place about the consumer and the relationship with the consumer, especially in the luxury industry. How do you think NFTs can enhance the relationship that brands have with their consumers?
No, that's a good question. So as I mentioned, we have two business units really address different needs of a consumer, if I may say. Stepping back a minute, actually, the whole reason Aura was created is to make blockchain easy and to abstract the complexity of blockchain. And this is actually what David does for our brands every day, if I may say, for the past 4 years. So really, luxury brands with a no-code solution, you need to have zero blockchain knowledge in-house when you become a member of Aura and use our blockchain solutions. And the purpose of actually these competitors, you mentioned we are founded by LVMH, Cartier, Richemont, Audi, and Prada. We are welcoming soon founding member number 5, and we welcome any luxury brand from any sector, that is from watches to jewelry, fashion, cars, yachts, art, so furniture, any sector, musical instruments. We have actually a use case, hotels, was actually for these competitors to come together. It was really the aspect of collaboration for the greater good, and the greater good here is really putting the consumer as well as the planet in the center. And then I say putting the consumer at the center, the consumer has several benefits. And for instance, if we start with our private permission-based blockchain, the added value of having a product, for instance, a diamond ring or a watch or a car, this actually set the digital ID, which we produce and which we basically are selling. There are several aspects to it. One, you have, for instance, the proof of authenticity. Once the product is logged in the blockchain, the consumer can check it directly and can see that this product is authentic. So he or she gets a certificate of authenticity or a proof of authenticity if you want. And the blockchain is immutable. And for those of you who are interested in the more technical aspect, David can actually outline that for you. Then there's a proof of ownership. That means who owns it. So the certificate of ownership, which is registered on the blockchain. It's not just the proof of ownership, but it's the transfer of ownership. So if I wanted to pass on the diamond ring to my daughter, or if I wanted to pass on the watch or sell it to someone else. Another interesting concept is about the e-warranty, which is again registered on the blockchain. This obviously makes it easy to extend warranties, to track warranties, to see, for instance, that your watch, or for instance, that the diamond ring has been made bigger, etc. This is another advantage. You can actually show that the watch has been maintained always in the certain watch store every year, for instance. These are just some, and then at the end of the day, it's also a record of all the events and the transactions of this luxury product. So this just gives some of the ideas and of the benefits to the consumer, really putting him or her, I would say, more at the center and more in power to use his or her product. There are also other cases. For instance, we've done a very interesting use case with Cartier on the after sales side, and they had a big uptake actually on the after sales activities because of the link they did actually this with blockchain, because they could allow this direct one-to-one communication. So these are just some examples, but I'm sure actually both David from Aura and David from Sarine have actually more examples as well.
I will turn to David from Sarine first, because Sarine has had has done a lot of work in traceability over the years, and has, especially to empower the retailers and be able to tell the diamond story and the journey to the consumer, which Daniela was just explaining. So what do you see as the main benefit for the retailer, like during the pipeline and the end consumer?
So again, the combination of taking information about the diamond, whether that is information about the product itself, whether it's about the jewelry, how it was manufactured, where it's from, who owned it, as Daniela mentioned, transfer of ownership. So information about that product today is of significant interest to the consumer. There's a lot bigger of a demand to understand more about the product. And in the end, the combination of that information and the ability to encapsulate that and present it to the consumer, enable them to manage their own information, is basically where the combination between the blockchain and the data which we provide comes into play. So it could be any kind of information. You talked about traceability, and no doubt in today's world with what's going on today in Europe, traceability has become a very significant aspect of understanding where the product is from, especially diamonds. So that's just one aspect of information about the diamond, because there are many different subcategories of different types of information that is of interest to the consumer as that diamond passes down the supply chain, and then actually moves into the retail and consumer space as well, where there's a life of that product after the sale of the product as well, which again is something that is of interest to the consumer. So the ability for the consumer to be able to really access the information about that diamond or diamond jewelry piece today has a lot more value and a lot more interest by the consumer in the past, and that's, I think, where the combinations of these two come into play.
And I have a question, because we're talking a bit, obviously, about luxury consumers who are the forefront of pushing the sustainability debate, who want more clarity about what they buy, and they want to know where it comes from. But what about the people in the industry? That we speak to some people and they say, well, we don't even know how to trace all our diamonds yet. So how can we, help them to embrace this new journey? And how, is it a bit too much maybe to take straight away?
When people ask me that question, my answer is very simple. Take the first step. So you're not going to be able to do everything in one day. You can't do everything that you want to do, not all categories, not all sizes, not all qualities. But take the first step on the journey. Start somewhere. Start doing small steps. And over time, I believe that this will become a more integral part of the industry. I think the whole Metaverse, Web3, NFT space is something new. Everyone's learning. It's not yet at a mature, like when David talked about the internet, I don't know, 20 plus years ago, no one would have thought of buying a product online. Today it's natural. You go on Amazon, you do most of your buying online, or a lot of it online. So I don't think yet that we as an industry or in general really have a clear vision of where this will go, but we're starting to discover use cases of how it can be used, and I'm sure it will evolve. What is being used today, the ideas of what the metaverse is today, what the use of an NFT is today, I'm sure that in a year or 2 or 5 down the line will evolve and will be very, very different. But we cannot ignore it. So we need to learn, we need to take the steps along the way. Some of them might take us to a direction that has no value. We'll learn about it, we'll take another direction. So I think this is something that is new, it's a learning space, and that people need to experiment, they need to educate themselves, but it's not necessarily something that there are all the answers to at this point in time.
Thank you. And turning to David, what would you say would be the next steps? David has highlighted the first steps on the journey. Now that you, as a CTO, as a blockchain and cryptocurrency expert, what do you see as the next stage?
Next stage is very difficult to foresee, because I think that we know. I completely agree with David. I mean, we are in a scouting kind of mode, because there is a new web in front of us. There will be YouTube, there will be new Facebook, there will be something like that, but we don't know what it is now. The technology, the blockchain technology, is the fastest moving technology I ever seen, and I worked before in artificial intelligence, so I know quite well. I have some experience in the technology field, but I never saw a technology move as fast as blockchain. So I think that this will go faster than in the past. But it's difficult to say. But as David say, it's very important to be comfortable with this new space, and so you need to do first steps. You need to be educated in. You need to know what you are doing. For sure, we have to learn a lot. So the first step will not be very easy. But for me, the most important point is to be ready when the time arrives. So and that's why we work also a lot on Aura in abstracting blockchain complexity, because we want brands to focus really on the business case and be able at the end of the day to really seize and leverage the new opportunities that this wonderful world will bring on the table very soon, even if we don't know, we cannot precisely know what the future will be right now.
And that's very interesting. And I think, usually we always look at what Tiffany & Co. is doing. And when there was an April's Fool, Tiffany released the TIFF coin, and people thought, are they going NFT? Are they not going? Actually, it was a material coin that they only sold for a short period of time. But I think there was a lot of excitement. What if we could get the Tiffany NFTs? So, and I think at the moment, that's still what we're trying to reconcile, especially in an industry that's very much about the material good. How do you have the digital good and the physical good together? What do you think, David, at Sarin? I know there's something that is very important to, how do we make the ownership of these two, and how do we explain the value of the digital aspect, since so much of our value is about the very hard stone that we hold in our hands?
It's a very interesting question, because if you go back, I don't know, 100 or 200 or however many hundreds of years ago, when money was physical, it was gold. Today, no one really carries cash, especially not coins. It's all virtual, it's all digital. So whenever money was a physical item, I don't think anyone could comprehend saying, I'm going to replace this with something digital. Now, I'm not saying that will happen with diamonds. I'm just saying that at a given time, it's very difficult to comprehend the future. And yes, today, I think the connection between the physical and the digital is a lot of where we're looking at and focusing. How do we connect up the digital world to the physical world, to the diamond or to the jewelry piece itself? And I think that's a lot of where value can be created today. Just the digital space, digital jewelry, digital diamonds. Again, there's a lot of areas that are being experimented in that. Take, for example, clothing. There are a lot of brands that sell clothing that is digital for gaming, for avatars, for things like that, and people will spend real money on that. I mean, so what we may consider today as unheard of or not possible could evolve in the future, but I definitely think there is today very much more of a focus on connecting up between the digital and physical world, and seeing where the value is created between that connecting up. So what I have in the digital world, I can have as well in the physical world, I can have as well in the digital world as well, and being able to connect up between those two objects.
Daniela, you gave us some examples before of passing down heirlooms, if it's a diamond ring, if it's a watch, something that goes from one person to another person. Can you tell us a bit more about the NFT initiatives you've just launched at the Samaritaine, I think, for the first year anniversary of Aura?
Sure. So we have several software solutions for, if I may say, the digital collectibles, the NFTs, which David is collecting. David, you have to show me your collection. we have several software solutions. So for instance, one is then it's all about gifting. So this is a software solution where a brand can gift an NFT with a physical product, or for instance, with an event, a proof of attendance. This is one solution which we call the Aura gifting solution. We have a second solution, which is the Aura white label, which actually a brand builds its own storefront, and we power the backend, and basically the brand can sell its own NFTs directly. If I may say, it's sort of your e-commerce on NFTs if you want. And you can include that in your own storefront, and the brand can do that in their own environment, in their own storytelling, linked to the product. That can be either virtual product, or again, similar to the gifting, it can be linked to physical product. And it really, there are so many use cases. Every brand, the brands are so creative. Every brand starts really with its own strategy. We then have a few more solutions in the pipeline, which is coming soon. And in terms of use cases, as I mentioned, there are many. What we usually do is we do ideation workshops with our member brands. And in these ideation workshops, the key message we always pass on, and this is all very new, as David said, David from Sarin, and with David, our David, we always say the NFT world is still a little bit the wild, wild west. And therefore, it's really important to have a few considerations in mind. The one is, it's really about a long-term game and your purpose with the NFTs. So what we really not recommend is, if I may say, the one-shot money-grabbing NFT launch where you want to sell high and that's it. We really recommend to have this long-term, few-year strategy and think it through as part of your, really as part of your product lineup. This is when we speak to the brands. I think the long-term and the purpose of it is really important. The other aspect which David and myself have to ensure, obviously within Aura, and what's our decision criteria, and maybe that's also interesting for the brands or the audience, how to select either the NFT you're buying for personal use, because you want to always look about who's actually behind it. You want to look at the team behind it. You want to see actually, are they going to still around in 3 months? And are they planning more initiatives and more utilities behind coming? So personally, when I look at NFTs, I really look behind who's the team behind it and is their future. But on the other hand, the decision criteria, which David and Elf has, so we have 5, which is we have to provide from a technology perspective the safest solution, from a legal perspective. Many people, when I say our member brands, the legal aspect is really underestimated of it. So it's technology, legal, it's fiscal. Fiscal is a whole different ballgame when you have your own NFT store where we provide support for our member brands. So I'm a brand based in Italy. What about if I sell an NFT to someone based in Singapore, and do I need to give an invoice or not? So many very trivial questions, which are really important. But if you want to go into this game, if I may, safe, well, these are the questions we are supporting our member brands. So it's providing the best technology solution, the best legal solution, fiscal, image, and that comes in our future solutions we are providing, and sustainability. I think the sustainability aspect is often or not yet enough creusé. How do you say that, David? Is not yet enough investigated, especially about the metaverse and NFT. And this is why in Aura, we always bring it back to the basics. What's your purpose? Will you link it to a physical product? Will it be digital only? So we really try to look at the long-term purpose on that. And on our business unit 1, which is upstream, downstream, all about traceability, where we work with David from Sarine team together. We have the most sustainable, or one of the most sustainable solutions for luxury. On the NFT side, we are actually working on some sustainability aspects as well on the public blockchain. So these decision criteria is, I think, really important when you think about your use case, either as a brand or when you start your personal NFT collection.
Thank you. I liked what you said about the Wild West of the metaverse, because, you know, we're looking at this digital world in which all the new generation digital native, I think 80% of them wouldn't consider doing anything outside of the digital sphere, and there's still, you know, a little bit of a pioneer spirit to this sphere. So, David Teruzzi, what else do you think people should be aware when they actually start? You know, what are the other pitfalls? And I think that's very nice what Daniela outlines. You know, she mentioned fiscal and she mentioned legal, because there's so much more to think about than just the actual fun product that people hold. What else would you say that people should be aware of in terms of when they enter the metaverse?
When I enter the metaverse, I think that the experience is quite open, so you don't take a lot of risk, even if you made a mistake, except when you buy. When you buy, the authenticity of the product is very important. This is a big pitfall, but maybe it is the biggest pain point at the moment, that because the space is very open, no one can prevent you to make a copy of an NFT, because the NFT can have only one owner, but you still can copy and repropose it in another collection and try to sell a fake. And that's why this is maybe a big challenge. This is quite a big challenge. So especially because people are not well formed to this world for sure. So the average Joe in the web space, he knows very well the web, but maybe not yet the pitfalls of the metaverse. And so when you spend money on the metaverse, it's important to have to do it on good marketplaces that grant you a seamless and safe experience.
I think there's something that we always try to at every stage of the journey in this industry to work with trusted players. I think there's something that, you know, is not going to change once we enter the metaverse even more, because it becomes like so many different options and so many, I think, anonymous people as well in the sphere. I think David at Sarin, that's something that we've discussed before, that there's so many players and you don't really know who they are. I mean, you're not always dealing with people who are backed by the Aura Consortium. You also deal with a lot of other people. How should the diamond people, the jury people, maybe more independent players try to navigate this kind of very big anonymous place?
So no doubt that today the space is very anonymous. To be honest, I'm not sure that that's the right direction. I don't think the value of there is a good reason for anonymity. To be honest, it creates fear. It creates a lot of negative aspects, and I think I'm already seeing, again, not necessarily in anything substantial, but if I look at the trend over the last year that I've been involved in the space, I can see a move from anonymity to being not anonymous within the space. There is more and more of a move in most different projects because there is a lack of trust if it's anonymous. Who is behind the project? Who are they? What are they doing? Do they have a record? So I think anyone going to the space should put themselves out there, just like with any other company, with any other project, not stand behind an anonymous, faceless alias. And that, I think, is the right way to go. And as I said, I've seen a change in that trend to more and more projects moving to that direction rather than the keeping anonymous. And I hope it will continue in that direction.
Do you see some markets being more receptive to NFTs? We're not obviously talking not just about the Gen Zs or the millennials, but in terms of the worldwide players. Do you see some markets maybe more ripe for this?
Good question. To be honest, from what I see, it's a very global arena. I see people from all over the world. From the US to Japan to India to Singapore, I mean, Europe. But I think if you look at, I would divide the current space, the metaverse and the NFT, into two very distinct segments today. 95, if not more percent, is hype. it's just hype. It's a lot of people that think that this is a way to get rich quick, and there's no substantial utility, as Daniela mentioned. And there's the very few percentage that are building long-term value, that are creating utility for the customers, that have a long-term vision of what they're doing, rather than a short cash grab or hit and run. We'll make some money, and everyone thinks that they're going to make money. So I think we're still at the very early days of the small percentage of projects and companies that are really creating value for their communities. And my hope is that that will grow, and as that grows, there will be more use cases being developed. And that's what attracted us to working together with Aura. There is a very clear vision of how to create utility for the consumer, rather than something that is just, I hope this will increase in value, wishful thinking.
That's good. We're going back to long-term value, not just an investment, short-term investment. And Daniela actually had a question about the consumers that will be interested in joining the metaverse. We think of these digital natives, the young consumers, Gen Zs, millennials, but the luxury consumer is a bit older, a bit more mature. How do you also think the big brands that you're working with are going to attract this different segment of the luxury sector?
You know, it's really going back to what added value you want to provide to your audience and to the consumer and to the product, and what will he or she perceive as added value. So it goes always back, if I may say, to this point. If you take, for instance, high-end jewelry, there are many use cases. Obviously, we are working with quite a few brands, but there are also some use cases which, you know, for instance, the design of the high-end jewelry brand, could this be, for instance, on an NFT? So when you pass on the item, this actually survives. It could also be the process of when someone designs a watch, or, you know, this is when, if I call made to measure or made to order in the fashion industry, but in the diamond industry, then you, there's obviously a lot of emotions. So when you design your own piece, if that's now a jewelry piece or a watch piece, the process of designing this, you can actually have these pictures or the video registered on the NFT and pass this on. I mean, if I may say, I gave my husband a beautiful box with drawings. It's a leather box, and there are hand-painted drawings on it with our kids. But, you know, I literally had to photograph the process, the box, how it was before, the kids and the painter drawing on the box, the croquis when the design was done. I mean, seriously, all of this was like, I mean, it was a beautiful gift, but I literally had to create all of that myself. And then I was like, what, I'm gonna send it via WhatsApp, or like, or put it on I mean, I don't know, do people still USB sticks? So that wasn't a seamless experience at all. And it wasn't a nice experience at all. So this obviously, especially if it's emotions and you provide something for a special anniversary or special event, it's nice to keep that also registered in an easy, accessible manner, immutable, which you don't lose, and well, that's the blockchain. So if you would put that in your own personal NFT, which the haute jewelry brand can create, or, you know, that particular watch, that's obviously then very interesting. We have currently done also an ecosystem partnership with Ledger, which is a hardware wallet. And instead of giving, you know, sometimes when you have, sometimes you give a gift with your diamond purchase, or with your watch purchase, or with your other product purchase. And instead of giving a sort of, you know, diamond encrusted pen or what it was before, maybe now you give an NFT with a special design. So these are just some ideas, and I'm not creative, but our brands are extremely creative. So there are many use cases, and again, it's coming back to the utility and the added value.
David Teruzzi, what do you think for for more the mainstream market in the jewelry sector, not just the high jewelry companies that have amazing division for R&D, the marketing, like they are really at the forefront. What would you say independent jewelers could start also doing?
I'm not sure I understood what.
Well, I mean, it's like, what do you think? Like, the whole journey, like Daniela outlined also, like a designer could, for example, monitor or chart the whole journey of a creation. What would you recommend maybe for diamond people in the industry that they could start as a first to start?
I think it's
To
more
join
a
the
question
blockchain?
for David Bloch,
Yes,
but I think in more technology, what I do find interesting, which we haven't spoken about yet, is actually the rich images and how our smart contract generator work and what information you can actually put. So maybe David, if you can outline a little bit the smart contract generator we have, and all the information, I mean, the videos and all the rich information you can put and how it works with the hash. Maybe that's interesting for your audience, if that's okay, Sonia.
Absolutely. I think images, that's one of our big thing. You need good images in our industry. So anything that's improving the offering is good if you want to share a bit with our audience.
Yes, basically what we did in Aura is we created a smart contract generator, which is a no-code tool that allows brands to just using a web interface to code a smart contract that can be deployed in our permissioned blockchain, and that can map a life cycle of products. So that each product becomes a series of steps, chronological steps, very often chronological steps. And to each of those steps, you can add what we call the rich content. So any kind of digital assets. So you can add images, PDF documents, 3D also objects or videos. And so this is very interesting because without coding, without having any blockchain knowledge, you can very easily basically create and deploy a smart contract and add to it any kind of images. And it's up to you. This is a kind of tool. So basically, this is a tool. So it's to the brand, the creativity of the brand, to use it in the best way. So sometimes you can add, for instance, images coming from the repair, or imaging coming from the manufacturing, so that this will enrich the final experience of the end user that will know more about this product, and knows also that these kind of data are immutable because of the blockchain.
Maybe Sonia, I'll try to give a simple example at the retail level of a potential use case. And it goes back to one of the examples that Daniela provided of ownership. Okay, so if I can now create a digital ownership of a jewelry piece, I buy this jewelry from a retailer that now registers me as the owner of that jewelry piece. And if I now have a digital fingerprint of that jewelry piece or diamond, when I come back 2 years later or 5 years later to do a trade up, or a year later to do a resizing or cleaning, it would be very easy then to recognize that digital signature and ensure that that diamond was sold to you, and that now I'm responsible to resize it as the retailer that sold it to you. So maybe a very down-to-earth, simple use case of how ownership and a digital signature connecting between the physical and the digital could be used in order to create a much higher level of trust between the retailer and the consumer. Whether it is, as I said, for resizing, for cleaning, for a buyback. I bought a 1 carat diamond. I want to bring it back and trade it in for a 2 carat. How does the retailer know that that diamond belongs to me, that was sold by the retailer to me? And how do I know that that's the same diamond? So the connection or the combination between having a digital signature that I can connect between the physical and the digital, as well as the data on the blockchain, that's my diamond that was sold by that retailer, will provide a very, very powerful solution to enable that. So maybe just a very simple example of something that happens on a day-to-day basis today at the retail level, but at a very low level of confidence.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's what we need to think about when we think of NFTs. It's really the back to basics. very practical, and how it can improve the day-to-day practice and of businesses in our industry. I think that's a great example. And I would like to look at some of the questions we've been asked. Now I'm just going to open. I think there was there's a question that maybe David Teruzzi you'd like to take about how to avoid a scam from the second sale. Can someone swap a diamond for a fake diamond? I think that's one of the biggest fear of our industry, swapping diamonds.
Yes, exactly. So the idea is that if you have a digital counterpart that is recorded into a immutable ledger, and in our case for Aura, we can have both the physical product that is recorded in a blockchain and possibly the digital counterpart that is recorded in another public blockchain. So in this case, you have two new writings, the two new pieces of data that are immutable and that are linked to the product. So for sure, it's much more difficult now to counterfeit. And moreover, you have all the history that comes with of the pieces of the item, the luxury good that is traced. So it becomes, and the end user is somehow connected to the brand with a login. It can be anonymous, not anonymous, but basically the brands can be recognized who is. So we have at the same time we have, thanks to the blockchain, the product there is immutable, there is recorded in an immutable way on a blockchain, and the user they can connect to this immutable space. So to say, this is my good, and maybe I want to do something, I want to resell it, but when I resell it, I immediately I can prove just in one click that I'm the official owner, and I have the right to transfer this ownership. And that's why this is really how we leverage, fully leverage the main feature, one of the main features of the blockchain, which is the immutability, to grant authenticity of products.
Thank you so much, David. And I have one question for David at Sarin, which is from actually one of our contributors, Jennifer Hidner. We didn't arrange that one before, I promise. She would love to know about your personal collection on NFTs. And can you tell us about two of your favorite purchases? Why did you purchase them and how do you use them?
Okay, so in general, the reason, as I mentioned earlier, to buy the NFTs is because whenever I want to learn about something, I do it. So it's doing it. It was learning the space, opening up a crypto wallet, buying Ethereum, opening up a MetaMask account, going and searching what projects are out there, why I connect to them, what interests me. And that's basically the reason. It was to learn the space by doing rather than just by learning, by reading. So that's the reason that I went in the space. And actually, I wanted to taste from different worlds. So I went into different projects that I had some connection with. One of them was due to art. I bought a Damien Hirst NFT. So that was
lucky you, David. Which one, first or second drop?
The first one. The
first one. Yeah. And did you trade in? Sorry, Sonia, but you know, I didn't.
Secondary. I bought it secondary.
You bought it secondary. Okay.
Yeah. So that was one because it interests me from the art perspective, and I thought the combination of the NFT and art. I also believe that it would retain long-term value. It's not some fly-by-night artist. It's a recognized artist that has a background. That was one. The second was actually a project. Again, those of you who may come in the space, be from the space, could recognize. It's actually called World of Woman. It's a woman-led project that again has different roadmaps of what they're doing in terms of the space. That was the second one, and others that again that I wanted to just explore the different communities that connected to the communities, to the people that were within the project. So actually, a lot about NFTs is the community. It's creating that community. It's a tough space, I will say. Everyone has something to say. Everyone has a different opinion. But I think that's a lot of what I like about it, when you find a community that that has the same values as you, that has the same interests. It's the next virtual space. And I guess I may not be an example, but my kids, I don't know, 80% of the time are on the computer, on their cell phone, on the tablet. They're in the digital space all the time. And that's today, whether we like it or not, the way that people communicate. And I look at the metaverse and NFTs and Web3 as the next evolution of the internet. How it will evolve and where it's going to evolve, I don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows. But I think it's important to watch the space and understand where it's going, because it's not going away, but it will evolve, I think, dramatically even over the years as we move ahead.
Thanks, David. Daniela, there's a question for you at Aura. How do people become members of the Aura Consortium?
So we are a non-profit based in Switzerland. We only have member brands. That means only a luxury brand become member. So for instance, Sarin is not a member brand. They are an ecosystem partner of ours. You can become a member by contacting us, getting in touch with us. It's only for luxury brands. That means you have to be a luxury brand. And then we present you with solutions. We write a positioning paper about the brand. It's very democratic. We take any luxury brand, any size, in any category, but it has to be a luxury brand.
Thanks. I hope that answers the question of one of our listeners. There's another question that I think is for David at Sarin. We're going back. One of our listeners asked, is it reasonable to talk about comprehensive traceability without having a physical mark put on a rough diamond?
Excellent question. The answer is very simple, yes. I could talk for an hour about traceability and how we do it. I don't want to hijack the webinar, so if Dennis would like to contact me, I'll leave my details in the chat and we can talk about how we do traceability. But yes, today Sarine tracks the diamonds from the rough all the way down to the polish until the retailer through verifiable information, not declarations, without marking the diamond. So the answer is very simple, yes. And again, I can go into a lot more detail how we do that, and I'll be happy to talk to Dennis or anyone else who would like to get more details.
And I think we've answered some of the questions. I hope I did not miss any of the other questions. I think a lot of the questions that were asked in the Q&A actually were answered by our panelists throughout the discussion. One question we have is, do you have any book to recommend on the NFTs or the metaverse? So I don't know if there's any books out there, or if you have other sources of information you'd recommend we all check after this webinar. What would you recommend, David, in Geneva?
No, I think that books. I think it's very difficult to look for books because it takes time to write a book, and the time you write a book in blockchain space, the blockchain space changes. So basically, I suggest you to create to follow good Twitter account on Twitter or YouTubers that can, because basically now also the way the information flow is completely different from the past. So basically now, if you want to stay up to date, you have also to be on you have to respond very quickly, and the way that the information is traveling now, when it comes to very cutting edge information on news in the blockchain space, basically through Twitter and YouTube, much more than books. So I suggest more to follow this digital.
I fully agree with you, David. If I can maybe add one, I use a lot either Twitter or actually LinkedIn. And there's one person which I absolutely adore for reading. His name is Tim Walter. I was actually on a panel with him. He's heading Metaverse and NFT for the Volkswagen Gruppe. And he constantly, I think every week publishes and he just did a post last week, the 5 best reports on NFT. He does a really nice summary, if I may say. So his name is, if you look him up on LinkedIn, Tim Walter, and this is W for whiskey, ALTHER. And I find it interesting because he brings together quite well a few things. Then there's a second one, which is, I can't remember her full LinkedIn name now, but she's the head of the future groups. And to be honest, I use a lot of Twitter and LinkedIn and follow here some key people. And I thought that's the most up to date. I don't think you will find a relevant book. Well, at least I haven't come across it.
Not in the Web3, that's it. You have to be on Web2 to follow. what would you recommend?
You can find some good on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, on smart contract, but web in Metaverse and Web3 is really too young.
Yes, we don't have the stepping the reserve yet. What would you say, David, at Sarin? I know you're also very much on LinkedIn and you follow a few key accounts.
As I said earlier, I read less and do more, get engaged with some projects, learn by looking. You don't need to do anything, you don't need to buy anything. Again, the mediums are different in Web3 than the ways of communication that we're used to. It's more Twitter, Discord. So the communities that are active in the space, in the NFT space, use different types of media. So LinkedIn is less relevant in terms of the way they communicate.
Sorry, I'm still the old generation. I mentioned LinkedIn. I didn't mention Discord.
I didn't know what Discord was until a year and a half ago. So it's new to me as well. But now I've got a Discord with, I don't know, 20 different channels. You know, 1 hour in the morning when I get up and 1 hour in the evening, I go in, chat. And then it's a community and you learn a lot from it. You learn a lot of what not to do. And a lot of what does work. So I enjoy it a lot and I learn a lot from that. Again, I read less. I don't have too much of the luxury to sit down with a good book or good textbook and read. So that's the way I do it, just on morning coffee and then the evening, you know, after the kids are asleep.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And I really would like to thank all our panelists today for their time and all the insights they shared with our audience. If you've joined this webinar a bit late, the recording will be available on diamonds.net. It will also be available on the Rappaport YouTube channel, so you can catch up. I would encourage you to follow our panelists on the different social media channels. You can find them. They always share very interesting articles and insights. So that's that, you know, this conversation is just starting. We're really at the early beginnings of the diamonds in the metaverse, and I'm sure we'll, you know, we could have this panel in a year and a lot of things will have changed already. So thank you so much, Daniela. Thanks, David and Teresi, and thanks, David Block. If you want to carry on the fast tracking the future, we have our next session, automated grading and the AI, on the 17th of May. So I would encourage everyone to register for this the last part of our series that will be hosted by my colleague, Joshua Friedman, the news editor at Rappaport. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, today. And thanks to all our attendees and the great questions and being enthusiastic about this subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.